Today we are going through all of the main battle tanks in NATO inventory, from the one that dies the easiest to the undisputed heavyweight champion of the battlefield, and ranking them by pure survivability, armor depth, ammunition storage, active protection, crew survivability, roof and belly protection, defense against drones, and how each handles a shot to the side or the rear. Stay with us, because the tank that takes the top spot is not the one most people expect, and the reason why might surprise you. Starting at the bottom with the M60 Patton. This is a Cold War steel tank trying to survive in a world of drones and top attack missiles, and that mismatch is not doing it any favors. The armor is thick cast and welded rolled steel across the hull and turret, which held up fine against older guns back in its day. What it doesn't have is the stuff that keeps modern crews alive. No deep composite layering, no spool liners catching fragments on the inside, and no separated ammunition tucked away from the men. Countries that still run it knew this, so they bolted extra protection on top. The Turkish M60T variant and similar refits added applique armor and explosive reactive armor packages, and those have improved against RPGs and some older anti-tank missiles coming in from the front. The problem is what that armor is sitting on top of. Underneath all the add-ons, the tank still stores its ammunition in and around the crew compartment, so when something punches through, the rounds are right there next to the people. The roof stays thin, the rear stays thin, and most versions carry no hard kill active protection and no real belly plate against mines. So when a top attack munition drops in from above, or a drone finds the engine deck, or an advanced guided missile hits a flank, the penetration doesn't just wound the tank, it tends to take the crew with it. It can still throw heavy firepower downrange when it's backed up properly. Push it forward carelessly, and it goes up far faster than anything built this century. Number 8. The C1 Ariete. Italy's main battle tank sits right at the bottom of the survivability spectrum among modern Western designs, and the numbers tell you why. The base armor in service configurations is thin for the company it keeps. With rolled steel on the hull front in the 100mm class and roughly 140 on the turret, backed by composites and spool liners, but nowhere near the layered mass of an Abrams or a late Leopard. It carries a good modern 120mm gun, and it moves well, so its problems are never about hitting or maneuvering. The problems start the moment something hits back. Italy has tried to close the gap with upgrade kits, the weight add-on, reactive add-on armor pack, and the planned AMV variant, which stack applique plating, better optics, and improved dart penetrators onto the platform. Those help, but they can't fix the core problem. Survivability reports and combat modeling keep landing on the same phrase: decent firepower and mobility, but overall poor survivability, which means a frontal or side penetration on an Ariete is far more likely to run straight into the crew and the ammunition than the same hit on a bustle-stored blow-off panel Western heavy. There's no integrated hard kill active protection to swap missiles before they arrive, and the internal layout never gives the ammo the kind of separation that keeps a penetration from turning into a fireball. The upgrade packages widen the protection envelope, but weight limits and the original design choices cap how much armor volume you can actually add. So the Ariete lands in the circle where crews have no margin for error. Used right, hold down at distance, with combined arms covering the angles, it survives and fights. Misplayed, caught in the open, or flanked, it mission kills or brews up noticeably easier than anything on the list. It's a modern vehicle with modern optics and a modern gun, but it shares the M60's core disease: ammunition too close to the men and not enough armor to keep the threats out, which is the exact problem every tank from here up starts seriously fixing. Number 7. The PT-91 Twardy. Poland took the old T-72 chassis, and instead of rebuilding it from the ground up, they brute forced its survivability upward with reactive armor and clever signature work. The hull and turret front are plastered with almost 400 Eroir reactive armor blocks, mounted tight with barely any gaps between them, and coated to cut down how visible the tank is in infrared and radar. Depending on what's coming at it, the Eroir is credited with raising survivability by somewhere between 30 and 70%. So against older single-charge anti-tank weapons, the Twardy can shrug off hits that would have cleanly punched through a bare T-72. Poland also reinforced the hull bottom under the driver, which gives the crew a bit more breathing room against mines and roadside blasts coming from below. That's where the good news ends, because under all that reactive armor, the tank is still a T-72 at heart. It It keeps the carousel autoloader, and it keeps the T-72 way of storing ammunition down in the fighting compartment with the crew. So the second something defeats the armor and gets inside, you're back to the classic Soviet problem. A penetration into the ammo space still triggers the turret launching catastrophic kill that everyone has seen in 100,000 times. The Aero does good work on the front and some of the sides, but it can't wrap the roof, it can't cover the rear engine deck, and it can't answer modern tandem warhead missiles built specifically to eat reactive armor, or drones dropping straight down from above. It's meaningfully harder to kill than raw Soviet crap if you catch it on the explosive reactive armor blocks up front. And that reactive armor plus the mine reinforcement is genuine protection the base T-72 never had. The moment a threat gets past the tiles though, it's still fundamentally vulnerable where it matters most. At the crew and the ammunition, and that ceiling is exactly what separates a modernized Soviet hull from the Western bustle ammo designs coming next. Number 6, the Leclerc. France built its survivability philosophy around a simple idea: don't get hit in the first place. Speed and fire control come first, then armor. It runs a 3-man crew and an autoloader feeding the 120mm gun at up to around 12 rounds a minute. And that pace is one of the best things a battle tank has ever had, because it keeps the tank's exposure window brutally short. The tank fires, shifts position, and breaks line of sight faster than most of its peers, so a lot of the incoming shots that should have found it are aiming at empty ground. When you can't out-armor a threat, you out-tempo it. The armor it does carry is a modular composite system concentrated where it counts, the turret front and upper hull, backed by spool liners inside and separated ammunition in a turret bustle. That bustle is the single most important part on this tank, because the stored rounds and the autoloader magazine sit behind armored walls, and the design can vent a worst-case detonation upward and out rather than down into the crew. The same move away from the Soviet carousel that defines every serious Western tank. The trade-offs are honest ones. Leclerc carries less absolute armor mass than a Challenger's or a Leopard's, its side and rear protection is more modest, and most service versions have no fielded hard kill active protection to lean on. So in a classic hold down duel, small profile forward, fast hunter-killer optics doing the work, efficient frontal armor holding the line, it's genuinely hard to destroy. Change the geometry though and the picture shifts. A flank hit, a top attack drone, heavy artillery, or a mine can disable or mission kill it far more easily than they'd crack an egg, because there simply isn't as much armor away from the front. Its survival leans on the crew keeping the tempo up, refusing to sit still and cashing in that fire control and mobility edge, instead of standing there soaking punishment. Number 5, the K2 Black Panther. South Korea went a different direction from the heavyweights. Rather than pile on mass, the K2 stays relatively lean at 55 to 56 tons and buys its survivability through smart armor, mobility, and a shrinking act. It uses modular composite armor blocks on the turret and hull, and its real party trick is the in-arm high-drop pneumatic suspension, which lets the whole hull kneel or lean to cut down how much of the tank the enemy can actually see and shoot. On top of that sits an auto-loaded 120mm L55 gun with a compact crew compartment, and keeping the human space small keeps it easier to protect. The protection figures back this up. South Korean and European estimates put the turret front at roughly 600 to 650mm equivalent against kinetic penetrators, and somewhere around 1000 to 1100 against shaped charges, with the hull sitting a touch lower. Before any of that even gets tested, multispectral smoke and soft kill systems go to work breaking missile seekers and denying clean guidance. So a lot of shots lose their lock before they ever arrive. But there is a problem. The original hard kill KAPS active protection system, quick enough to swat an RPG-7 or a Metis-M in a fraction of a second. Proved it technically worked, but never made it onto production because of cost and integration headaches. So current models, and the export K2NO variant ship, APS ready rather than actually shielded, which means the tank leans on terrain, those suspension tricks, sensor fusion, and its compact profile to avoid clean hits, instead of an Abrams style ammo bustle or a trophy bubble catching threats for it. Playing to its strengths, using the ground and its own low silhouette, is extremely hard to hit cleanly and extremely hard to kill. Number 4, the Alte. Turkey took the K2 template and thickened it into a 65-ton design built to fix the very weaknesses the K2 leaves open. It runs a 120mm L55 gun under Korean license, wraps the Harlan turret in Rocketsan composite and modular reactive armor packs. And unlike the K2, it actually carries its hard kill system, the Aselsan AK Coar Active Protection Suite, live and intercepting. That gives it a layered stack that answers everything from RPGs up to top-tier anti-tank guided missiles before they connect. The Urban and T2 variants push it further, adding slat or cage armor around the engine, reactive and non-explosive reactive packages on the sides, and a real focus on mine and belly protection. Turkey also went after a specific known weak point. Early Alte layouts put significant ammunition on both sides of the driver in the hull, and that's dangerous ground because a penetration there cooks off rounds right next to the crew. Turkey has watched exactly that happen to its legacy Leopard 2 fleet, so the second batch aims to isolate that ammunition with better separation and armor while keeping the bustle and side packs. With AK Core knocking down incoming missiles, composite and modular armor calibrated against Javelin class threats, and that heavy mine focus. The Alte is meant to be one of the hardest tanks in its weight class to kill outright as long as the APS is live and the hull is angled right. It still isn't sealed, but there is a problem. While hull ammo racks exist, a low front shot into that stowage remains the way in. The roof has to juggle sensor masts, APS launchers and hatches, all competing for the same space, so top attack munitions that saturate the Accor can find a path. And the rear engine deck stays exposed if the tank is caught maneuvering without infantry or drones watching over it. Despite all that, the tank brings the hard kill layer the K2 was designed for but never got, and that live interception is worth more than raw armor numbers when the missiles start flying. Number 3, the Challenger. Challenger 2 carries the heaviest traditional armor package in all of NATO, built around Dorchester composite blocks on the turret cheeks and the upper glacis, stacked deep enough to act like a layered barrier against both kinetic darts and shaped charged jets. It earned a reputation as a rolling bunker, and that reputation shows up where it counts in extremely low crew loss rates when it does get hit. The ammunition sits in separated racks with blast mitigation rather than loose rounds scattered around the crew, and the tank layers spool liners and internal fire suppression underneath a very tall turret. That height makes it easier to spot, but it also buys room for more armor mass, and the trade has paid off. Combat footage from recent conflicts shows Challenger 2 eating FPV drone strikes, artillery and anti-tank rounds with the crew walking away, and in some cases the tank staying mobile enough to be recovered and sent back in, with only a handful of total losses out of a small deployed fleet. But the tank is not invincible. The rifled gun's ammunition and stowage on older loadouts, the heavy weight, the modest mobility, and the lack of an integrated hard kill active protection system on most in-service vehicles all leave it exposed to swarms of top attack drones, flanking anti-tank teams and saturation artillery if it's forced to maneuver out in the open. That's the exact problem the Challenger 3 refit is built to solve. A new smoothbore gun, revised armor, a digital backbone, thicker roof and side protection, and modern sensors and protection suites, all aimed at dragging it back into clear overmatch once it's fully fielded. Proven, tested armor, and a combat record of crews surviving hit after hit, the kind of evidence an active protection system on a newer design hasn't had the years to earn yet. Number 2, the M1 Abrams. The Abrams is the hardest tank in NATO to turn into a crew kill, and that's not an accident of armor thickness. It's the entire design philosophy made physical. The rule the tank is built around is blunt: the tank can die, the crew should live, and every choice in the layout serves that one goal. It starts with a chop ham type composite sandwich of steel, ceramics, and elastomer that breaks up shaped charged jets and grinds down long rod penetrators. And on the later M1A1 heavy armor and M1A2 variants, that armor gets woven through with meshes of depleted uranium plates, which pile on density without pushing the thickness past what the tank can carry. Then comes the part that actually saves crews. Almost all the ammunition lives in a rear turret bustle behind an armored blast door, and the top of that compartment is deliberately built weak with blow-off panels, so when the ammo cooks off, the pressure vents up and out instead of down into the crew capsule. That's why the documented hits raid the way they do. Ukrainian M1A1s have absorbed 4 to 6 direct strikes from anti-tank weapons, with the crews walking away away, leaving a burned out hull with an intact crew compartment, the exact opposite of the turret pop you see on Soviet carousel designs. It still has doors that can be pried open. Older export and non-depleted uranium variants don't carry the full heavy armor mesh, roof protection against cheap FPV drones, and artillery submunitions is only now getting upgraded. And the side armor around the fuel tanks, the rear engine block, and the lower hull stays vulnerable to close-range infantry if the tank shows too much of itself. But as a survivability machine, separated ammo, blow-off design, fire suppression, and a huge protected volume all working together. Nothing else in NATO service turns a single penetration into a dead crew less often. Every tank on this list has been chasing the same goal, keeping the people alive after the armor fails. And the Abrams is simply the one that has been proven to do it. Number 1. The Leopard 2. The Leopard starts from a solid composite armor core and then scales its survivability up through the variants, so no two generations protect the crew the same way. Early A4s lean on frontal composite blocks and internal spool liners, while the later A5, A6, A7, and A8 models stack thicker turret wedges, side skirts, belly mine plates, and slat armor on top of that base, pushing effective frontal protection against darts and shaped charges into the multi-meter equivalent range. The ammunition is split between two places, a magazine beside the driver and a turret bustle behind an armored door with a blow-off panel. That bustle is the safe half behaving like an Abrams capsule when it's hit and venting the blast upward. The whole magazine next to the driver is the problem. Because if the lower glacis or hull front gets perforated, that front rack is right there in the danger zone. Which is exactly why experienced crews habitually run with that front magazine empty to keep the risk down. The newest 2A8 variant is where it gets serious, wrapping the whole tank in a digital shield by fitting the Israeli Trophy active protection system as factory standard. 4 radars and 2 launchers throw a full 360-degree bubble around the vehicle, spotting incoming missiles and rockets and firing countermeasures to kill them before impact. And it pairs that with reinforced roof armor built against drones and top attack munitions. Crewed properly, a high-end Leopard is brutally hard to kill from the front and sides. The ways in are the ones it hasn't fully sealed, the lower front hull, that ammo-filled front magazine, and the rear engine deck, all of which open up if the enemy can force a bad angle or drop something in from above. But the tank brings everything, deep frontal armor and separated bustle ammo, and then adds the hard kill trophy bubble and dedicated roof armor. Thanks for watching, bye for now.